Alright, here's an update on that Q1 steam locomotive I've been building. The shell's just basically done. It looks like there. I added this piece. It needs a lot more work on it, needs some body work, but I decided to do the drivetrain. That way if any modifications needed to be made, I could make them. Windows need to be filed out, back needs to be cut, and unfortunately I cracked this thing. It needs to be extended. I'm not really worried about that though. So anyway, what we got for drivetrain here, hold on for a minute. I want to show you. This is sitting on a piece of 18-inch radius, just to show you that it actually will turn. None of the flanges are cut. This is two 4.62s frames. The front is basically untouched. I didn't have to do really any modifications other than cut the top of the pistons down so they would fit. I will be putting this piece back in here eventually. I thought it wouldn't clear it, but it actually will. I got rid of the valve gear and just moused this piece in there. I did the same with the back. This rod here, going from here to the piston, had to be shortened because this piston was originally on the front of this truck. So I lopped off the front set of drivers and flip-flopped the piston and moved it to the back. And it's on top of the wheel. As you can see, there's not a lot of space. It needed to be very close in order to do this. Now the rear truck is two trucks from a 4.62 put together. Couldn't use a regular 4.64 truck because I needed the extension to be underneath the piston. See it? I had to shave that down. None of it's been painted, obviously, so you can still see the glue and the baking soda that holds it together. It's very strong. It needs to be reshaped and painted. You can see I added some baking soda in there to get it so it's more rounded again. The tow bar needed to be extended or moved. It was easy to extend it. So that's what it looks like on the other side with the piston. The rear, I made the rear articulate slightly different than the front. Front doesn't articulate, it doesn't have as much movement. Oops, I knocked it off the track. Doesn't have as much movement as the, it actually has more movement than the front. I did not want the front pistons swinging way out in the front end, looking like a big boy, how it really overextended the track. So I made the ass end articulate a little bit more and the rear end of this one articulate more. So it's not as noticeable on the front, the way it rides the track. It's not too bad. And the piston doesn't really overhang too much if you look at it. If I had made the shell wider, the body of the train wider, I could have hid that. You really wouldn't have noticed it, but I basically kept with the scale. How I figured out the dimension, the length of this train and whatnot, I got the specs. I found a straight-on photograph, opened it up in a program at work, made it to size, and then measured and came up with the measurements. And then it turned out I ended up finding a PDF file blueprint for this train, a T1, which I didn't have when I built the T1. I was winging it, which gives me the actual sizes, so I'm within 1/8 of an inch of what this thing should have been. Very happy with it so far. So the only thing as far as the shell goes, this tape is down. It really should have came straight across, and this should be more flat and protruding like closer to the camera. But I think I'll trick it with the eye with paint. I'll make it a slightly different color. I don't know I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I might even add material there. But let me pull the shell off this thing here. Hold on for a second. Alright, so this is the, I'll take it off the track so I can show you the movement. Okay. These are dual motors. And what they're pivoting on is, for anybody that knows anything about snow blowers or lawnmowers, on the tip of the spark plug where you put the wire is this piece that screws in. Some spark plugs, you take this off for the spark plug wire to go in, and some of them you don't. Well, I have a bunch of these, and what happened was I machined this thing down like that. This one here was the first one I did. I did not use one of these. I used one that was done a lot neater. I bonded it on the front truck. It's bonded. I did not, if I was to move it back here, I could have put a screw in where the rivet holds the plastic insert of the frame, but I needed it to articulate differently, so I bonded it. What I did was I cut it. I cut the bottom piece of this where my thumb is, and I cut lips in it and flat edges so it wasn't round anymore, and I bonded it to the frame. That way it wouldn't spin. If I had just bonded it in some round, it might have spun, but because I made it basically square, it'll hold. Now, the rear one, as you can see, is holding basically the gearbox or the worm gear. Where you see the screw right there, well, there's one in the front. Well, what I did was I took a screw that threaded into this little spark plug doohickey. I cut the head of it off. I glued it in this and then threaded it back on and with Loctite and let it dry. Then I re-tapped the hole on the frame and I screwed this down like that to hold the transmission down, or gearbox. And then the up piece here, there's a piece of metal with a hole that this fits in, fits down on that. There's a spring, as you can see the spring. There's also a spring in the front, see it? See that when I add weight, those front wheels of the truck will hit the ground. There's no weight in it right now. I have to melt some lead. This is all bonded down with crazy glue and baking soda. It's extremely strong. This here right here had a hairline crack across the top of it, so I fixed that. Now my drive shafts. That is 1.5 inside diameter, 3.5 outside diameter, silicone rubber hose. It's food grade hose. It's what they use in the food industry for whatever, machines, coffee makers, whatever the hell it's for. Right now there's a piece of steel. There's a piece of steel in there so this thing won't twist. But because there's a space here and a space here, it acts like a drive shaft with two U-joints on it, so it's flexible. This one here didn't need one because it's so short. As far as mating it to the transmission, there's a piece of shrink wrap glued onto the shaft and then this is glued on to the shrink wrap. This here just fits tightly on the transmission, I mean on the motor. It didn't need to be glued. So, anyway, the motors are wired out of polarity, obviously, because one's facing one way and one's facing the other. Now, you can see that the top of the pistons have been sanded down. I have to wet sand them to get rid of all the scratches before I paint it. Now, this rear truck, like I said, was 2 trucks put together off of a 462. And because I needed the extension, see how it clears the pistons? I needed that. So that's where we're at with this. It actually runs. This rear one has a little bit of binding at slow speeds. I haven't worked out that yet. I thought it was a 1/4 issue. I changed the wheels. Still did it. It might be something to do with this. Not sure. It seems the more I run it, the less it binds up. The other thing that I noticed is this transmission cover, because this was originally, the pistons were originally here in the front, like this, and the gearbox was flip-flopped. So I took the worm gear out, spun it around so the plastic piece would fit on the gearbox, would fit correctly. I've noticed that the last 3 times I've done this, for some reason when you tighten it down, the spacing, the way it's machined, or the plastic, or however, doesn't quite, it's not the same. So it puts too much pressure on the worm gear, and it causes it to bind. So there's a spacer underneath the back half of this, so it's not smushed down as tight to the frame. I've had this problem with all 3 trains that I've made. When I take this cover off and flip-flop it so it fits on the frame, and then change the worm gear so I can have it facing the opposite direction, I have this problem. So anyway, like I said, I spaced it. It got rid of most of the drag. And I knew there was drag because when I loosened the screw up, the wheels spun up. The wheels picked up speed, and when I tightened it back down, it slowed down. So I know it had the problem that the other 3 had. The other 2 trains had, excuse me. So, it's something I'm going to work on. But anyway. So, to the front truck. This is front heavy. When I push on this, because of the weight, and where the pivot pin is. Ideally, it would be here. But I wanted the ass end to articulate more than the front. I didn't want the front end swinging way past the body. So I needed a happy medium. But in doing that, I screwed the geometry up as far as weight distribution goes. So it made it a little bit front heavy. Now, the only reason why it's not really coming up off the ground is because I made a spring, a plastic spring. This is a piece of Lexan that I've bent. And Lexan, when you straighten it, when you try to bend it, it will revert back to its original shape unless you overbend it. So this piece here is acting like a spring. You'll see it move up and down. It helps keep tension. The ass up. You see how it moves a little bit? It'll work better if I do it like this. Yeah, hold on. See it moving? It's keeping the rear wheels on the truck, the track. It might have to be tightened up. I don't know. Might have to have a little bit more tension. I won't know until I have weight on the frame. But it also allows it to slide back and forth on it. Now I don't have, like a big boy has the round pin on it with the spring to correct that problem that the big boy has. But I don't have any of that stuff, and I'm not tearing apart one of my big boys to steal a part from it. It's bad enough that I sacrificed one of my 462s today because I bought a bunch of parts and it didn't come with the frame, and I thought it did. So I stole the frame off of a perfectly working train to be able to build this. So there you have it. I think that's it. And this needs to be cleaned up and painted with, black paint. I usually use like a rubber thick primer that hardens very hard. Doesn't really chip off easily. So I think that's what I'll do with this. Now, as far as this piece goes, this is actually the track bed of a piece of Bachman steel easy track, similar to this. I ripped the track off of it, I cut the sides off of it, re-glued it, shaved it down. As you can see, you can actually see the inside there. See where the track used to be? See the track where the, yeah. So, anyway, the fact that this is all glued down the sides with baking soda and crazy glue, it actually adds strength, so it's not as flexible as it normally would be, so it's actually stronger than it looks. Now, as far as weight go, I'm basically going to build a bridge over all this stuff. Either out of plastic or a small piece of aluminum, so nothing touches this. And then I'm going to put lead weight on top of that. And then underneath will be where the trucks can move. Now the S1 that I made, there was enough space between both gearboxes for me to put weight in the middle and then build a bridge off the top of the weight. I don't have that kind of space with this, and I don't want the weight attached to the top of the shell because it'll make it top heavy and the thing will probably flip over. So that's the update. There you have it. Let me know what you think. Oh, one more thing. These motors are glued on rubber blocks that I sanded down like a wedge. You can see it. Bonding the motor directly to the plastic makes a lot of vibration and they're noisy, so I always use rubber. And then the bottom of the motor is rounded, so right in there you see crazy glue and baking soda, which makes it basically a hard plastic. If I was to remove that motor, I have to pry it off with a screwdriver. It's very, very strong. It's very reliable. I've never had a motor fall off doing this method. Same with the back. It's not the neatest thing in the world, but it's strong. This back of this train extended with a piece of plastic. Used to have the metal ears off of it where it's screwed into the rivarossi frame. I chopped those off and added 3/4 of an inch of plastic to the back to hold the motor in place. So there you have it. It's a little crude. It's got to be cleaned up, but it actually works. So hopefully in a few days from now you'll see it running around the layout. That's that. Thanks for watching.